Welcome to a world where particles, vibrations, and light collide, a place where leading industry experts and healers come together to discuss controversial topics that will challenge your beliefs and expand your mind. From quantum physics to metaphysics, no topic is off limits, but this is not your typical podcast.
Always be in your integrity, and in your integrity you understand that it is what it is. Energy is until it's not, right? Energy is flowing into your body until it stops flowing because it becomes so clogged up, and then disease begins, right? So be in your integrity. When somebody's saying something that you totally disagree with, don't sit in your mind and go, what an idiot, right? Just say, wow, they're really convicted on how they feel. That's amazing. Bless them in their thoughts. Don't be judgmental in their thoughts. Bless them for having the power to feel the way they feel, even if it's different from you.
It's a show guaranteed to make you question your assumptions and push you to expand your horizons. For those who are already fascinated or passionate about the work of Patti Conklin, this show will give you an inside look into the mind of one of the industry's most renowned figures in vibrational mediation. With over 28 years of experience and a long list of big-name collaborations, Patti's insights and perspectives will inspire and challenge even the most seasoned practitioners. And if you're the skeptic who doesn't believe in vibrational mediation, this show is for you. Healers, doctors, and scientists are just a few of the professions represented by our fascinating visitors that bring their unique perspective to every episode. Join us on this journey into the world of healing within and adventure inside. Our mission is to inspire, challenge, and enlighten our audience with thought-provoking conversations and fascinating guests from a wide range of fields who can shed new light on important issues facing society today. Join us for each episode if you're ready to explore and learn about the latest developments at the intersection of cutting-edge science, spirituality, and self-improvement. Enter a world where waves, particles, and light all meet. Enter the world of healing within and adventure inside.
I'm so happy you're here. Tell us about Jeffrey. How'd you get from point A to point B?
Well, here I am. I turned 75 years old last December 4th, and it was an amazing day for me because that's the day I received the Bigelow Prize, the grand prize in the Bigelow Institute essay competition for the best evidence for survival of the human consciousness after permanent bodily death.
Wow.
So that's the most recent big event of my life.
That's huge. Tell us about that. How does consciousness continue? Tell us about your essay.
Oh, okay. Well, for starters, if you are a materialist, it's going to be hard. If you're a materialist, you've got a problem with the existence of consciousness at all. How do you get conscious beings out of a world that is made of simply dead matter, like little billiard ball particles bouncing around?
Totally agree.
That's called the mind-body problem in philosophy. So the way to that I think, well, there are several routes to get around it, but the basic message that my essay had was that the evidence is overwhelming for survival after bodily death. You've got the reincarnation research, and I know you were very close with Dick Sutphin, who's a specialist in that area. You've got near-death experiences. You've got mediumship and spiritualism. You've got people who communicate with their deceased loved ones via the radio or via computers or even on the telephone. And so the list goes on and on. Now, I kind of think that the best way to explain all of this has to do with what is known in philosophy as idealism. And idealism means not that you're idealistic and you think the world is perfect, but that the world is made out of ideas rather than made out of billiard balls.
Right. I love it. So in all of your different experiences, you've had in your life, all your different writings, obviously your show, New Thinking Aloud. What has stood out for you in terms of the aha moment when you realized or when you acknowledged that you were in a path that was really forefront in its kind?
Well, Patti, I've been doing media interviews like you are ever since 1972, when I got started, half a century. And I've found consistently over that time that the best interviews are the ones in which we come to a point where we acknowledge that all is one and we are part of it. We are one with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, such an important concept, and one that a lot of people seem to continue to separate, need the separation, whether it's ego, whether it's judgment, whatever it is, that we're not in that one space. When you talk to people, when you interview people, what is the one concept that, if there is one, that continues to merge, that continues to melt amongst different teachers or spiritual leaders or philosophers?
Now, as I mentioned, the idea that all is one and that we are one with everything, that's the basic concept. That's the essence, I think, of all of mysticism. We all come from the same source. We all share the same ground of being. However, then you get the question, how is it that I seem to be separate? Why is it that I'm in this body, that I have this skin, and it feels like I'm inside of my skin and the rest of the universe is outside? And what's the relationship between this little me and this big world out there? And that gets very interesting. That's where you get into things like archetypal psychology and mythology and the physics of hyperspace, for example.
Yes. I used to do a show called Quantum Physics to Metaphysics, and it was one of my favorite things to do, was to look at quantum physics from a spiritual standpoint, and a spiritual standpoint looking at quantum physics. So that's always been fun. Your essay, Beyond the Brain: The Survival for Human Consciousness After Permanent Bodily Death. Is there a time frame on that? Is that forever? I'm clueless. Fill me in on that. Do we have consciousness forever after?
Well, I'm inclined to think that we are infinite beings, that we have no beginning and no end. So yes, that would be forever, wouldn't it? On the other hand, who am I to say? It could just be a very, very long time, for all I know. And then you get into, as you know, reincarnation. And how does reincarnation relate to the idea of the hereafter?
Yes.
I mean, it was a big issue for the spiritualists of the 19th century. They didn't know about reincarnation, the European spiritualists.
Right.
So it wasn't part of their philosophy. It was like, when you die, you go to heaven. And in Christianity, Isaac Newton, the great physicist, was a devout Christian. And he believed that when you die, you basically go to sleep until the resurrection. Then you are awakened. So there are all of these views, but it does seem to me, looking at the evidence that we have, that you can think of both, let's call them heavenly realms or super sensible realms, not just heavenly. They can be negative as well. But there are these realms, but then you can return to this earth plane as well. And so we know for a fact some people reincarnate. We don't know for sure that everybody reincarnates, but good chance of it, I would think.
That's an interesting concept in and of itself, is that some people reincarnate and possibly others don't. I always hear from people saying, I've had such a rough life this lifetime, this has got to be the last one. Psychics tell me it's the last one. And I always just kind of, smile and, appreciate where they're coming from. But in my mind going, probably not. But Suppan and I always used to have the conversation of the reincarnation. People in our workshops would say, dislike this person on site or fell in love with this person on site. And Dick would always say, well, it's because you were in a past life together and, bad things happen or whatever. And I'd always come back with, can't the frequency just be off? Can't the frequency between the two people be so off that they don't like each other on site or they like each other on site? So that over 22 years, that was an ongoing discussion we'd have all over the place. How does frequency play in your mind, into consciousness or reincarnation or consciousness after permanent bodily death? I really, yeah.
Well, here's how I think about frequency. We have in the physical plane, we have, up, down, right, left, back, forth, the 3 dimensions of space, and only 1 dimension of time. It's always moving forward, it seems to us.
Right.
I believe that in the realm of consciousness, there's another dimension, and you could think of it as being from ultimate goodness to ultimate badness, or I don't really relate much to the word evil, but maybe. So let's say good and evil, that's a dimension. And that would be related to frequency. The higher frequencies take you into the higher and higher heavenly realms, where everything is better and better and better in every way. And especially ethically, especially in the relationships that people have with each other, especially in the quality of love and compassion that people can experience. So to me, that's your frequency.
Yeah.
And people tend to gravitate toward their, what could you call it, their homeostasis. We have like a frequency that we return to all the time. That's our base frequency. So when you die, for example, you're going to want to be around people of the same frequency as your base frequency. So some people are going to want to reincarnate to get back to where they were, or maybe they'll be in you could call it a purgatory realm, which for them is the most comfortable place. If you take a person whose base frequency is at a certain level, and you say, okay, you're going to go to heaven now and be with the angels and be with God, they may be very uncomfortable in that environment. It might appear to them to be like blinding light that they cannot tolerate.
Yeah. Wow. I remember when my great-grandmother died. I adored her. And for years later, I mean, even into my 30s and 40s, I'd be cooking dinner or just, I'd be in Michigan, I'd be somewhere in the country, and I'd hear her from the grave, "Child, you come to me now." And I'd stop what I was doing and catch a flight and fly back to Brooktondale, New York, and sit at her grave and go, "What? Why haven't you left?" And she'd say, "Child, you don't know everything yet." And that was her standard response until one of our family members passed away that she was very close to. And then all of a sudden I realized she was gone. She no longer was there. And I found that fascinating, because that's the only experience that I've had with someone who just doggedly stayed, who just was not going to go. And I kept telling her, I'd say to her, the rapture is not going to happen this way. I just don't believe it's going to happen this way, because she was Pentecostal. And it was fascinating to me. And I think that, that's what I think of when I think of human consciousness after the body has already passed and made its transition, that you've got this experience going on. So as a child, what started taking you on this path? I mean, how did it all begin for you?
In my first book, which was published in 1975, I reflected on an experience I had as a child. I used to climb up on the roof of our house and sit up there, and I'd be thinking to myself, why am I me? Why am I not one of these other people I could see walking down the sidewalk or something? How did that happen? And I think that was maybe like the first glimmers of awakening, but I was probably about 10 years old or so.
That's deep. That's deep. That's deep for a 10-year-old to say, why am I me? Why am I not one of these other people? Now, you have a degree from University of California in parapsychology, and you're the only individual that has gotten that degree. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. First of all, I should make a point of acknowledging that there are probably 200 or 300 people who did doctoral level research in parapsychology. Yeah. So my unique distinction is I actually have a diploma that says parapsychology on it. And to my knowledge, it's actually the only diploma in the world ever awarded by an accredited university, in my case, the University of California at Berkeley. And if you had known me, Patti, in 1972, you would have seen a criminology student. I was doing field work at San Quentin Prison in California in the psychiatric unit, running group therapy sessions with murderers and rapists.
Wow.
So I always had an interest in human deviance.
Yes.
And what happened to me at that time is I had the most powerful dream of my life. It was in March of 1972. And in this dream, my great uncle Harry, who I hadn't seen in maybe 10 years, he came to me and we had a very deep conversation in the dream. And when I awoke from the dream, I was crying tears of joy and singing.
Wow.
The most sacred song that I know of in the Jewish religious liturgy. And
wow.
I wrote home. I said, "How's Uncle Harry?" And my mother called me right away when she got the letter. And she said, "How did you know Uncle Harry just died? He had died almost to the moment when I had the dream about him." And that affected me strongly. And I began to try to find a way to shift from studying the negative forms of human deviance to the positive. I wanted to study mysticism and parapsychology and intuition and creativity, but there really weren't any opportunities at the university. Universities, for the most part, don't teach that topic. And I agonized over this for months. And then one day, I knew I was going to find the answer in a dream, and that the dream would come that night. And I just had absolute confidence. And then I had this very interesting dream. I was visiting some friends in Berkeley where I lived, knocked on the door of their apartment. There was no answer. And in the dream, I found a key, let myself into their apartment, walked into the living room, and saw in the middle of the living room floor a magazine, which in the dream was called EYE. I was paging through the magazine in my dream when I woke up with this feeling of exhilaration, like this is the answer. But I had no idea what it meant. So I acted out the dream. I actually got up 7 a.m, ran across town to this apartment 5 miles away, knocked on the door, no answer. And I happened to know that they kept a key under the doormat. So I found the key, let myself in, walked into the living room, and there, smack dab in the middle of the living room floor, just as I had dreamt, was a magazine. Interestingly, the magazine was named Focus. And it literally brought focus to my life. For people of your viewers who live in the San Francisco Bay Area, they probably know Focus is the magazine of the listener-sponsored radio and TV station in San Francisco, KQED. And as I'm paging through the magazine, it dawned on me for the very first time in my life that I could pursue my interests by getting involved in the nonprofit segment of the media.
Yeah.
And which was a big shift for me. I did not own a radio or a TV back then. And in fact, I was a long-haired hippie. I didn't believe in electronic communication. I thought it was all phony. But I changed my mind at that moment. And I went and volunteered at the local radio station in Berkeley, the Pacifica radio station, which is also nonprofit.
Right.
And even though at that point I had earned my master's degree, they said, okay, sit here at this desk, and when you hear the doorbell ring, push this button and let people in the front door, which I gladly did.
Yeah.
And for, took me about 3 weeks to learn how to produce my first radio program, which I produced. It was called You Don't Have to Be From Out of Town to Be Psychic. And because I had friends, psychic friends living in Berkeley, the local pagan community. And the program director liked it so much, he said, we've got a regular slot for you every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. Would you please host this program called The Mind's Ear? And I found myself all of a sudden sitting at a desk with world-class experts in all the fields that interested me the most on their book tours, passing through the San Francisco Bay Area. They would come to Berkeley and KPFA radio where I was, and I was interviewing people like Robert Monroe, author of Journeys Out of the Body.
Yes.
People of that level. And that gave me the confidence to go back to the university and take advantage of an obscure rule they had, which is if you're a graduate student in good standing and you want to write a dissertation on a topic that no department will sponsor, but you can find a few faculty members from different departments who are willing to sponsor you, you can create your own unique doctoral degree program. And so I took advantage of that, and it took me another 7 years to get the degree, but that's how it happened.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing, incredible, and meant to be. That's to be able to be in that situation and go ahead and follow your dream and to the letter and go into the apartment and realize nonprofit would be a great way to enter the radio and just be able to all of a sudden have those noon slots open up. That's amazing. That's wonderful.
Well, to me, there's a lesson in it. And the lesson is that if you resolve to become the best version of yourself, whatever that may mean, that the universe wants you to do that, and it will help you.
Yes, I totally agree with that. So what's next? I mean, you've gotten the Bigelow Award. On the same day you turned 75. where are you going next? What looks interesting to you?
Well, I'm still hosting the New Thinking Aloud channel on YouTube. So I'm doing interviews just like I did 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm also now on the board of directors of the new Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. And so that's very exciting.
It's incredibly exciting. It's incredibly exciting. What do you want people to walk away from today in our talk? What would you like them to think about, if anything?
What a good question that is. And of course, it'll be a little different, I suppose, for each person. But for example, I think maybe one of the most important questions anybody can ask of themselves is, how can I become the best version of myself?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's being a better mother or a better father or a sister or a brother or a friend to somebody, or pursuing a career, following your passion, as Joseph Campbell always used to say. It's going to be a little different for everybody, but I think it's a very useful thing for people to strive to be the best that they can.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I thank you so much, Jeffrey Mishlove, and people can find you on New Thinking Aloud on your YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being a guest today on Healing Within and Adventure Inside.
It's a pleasure, Patti.
Thank you.